Okay. Welcome to the House Medium. I'm Adele Levine, your House Medium. And man, do we got some paranormal stuff to talk about today. First of all, this story is my very first Bigfoot story. Yes. So, Bigfoot Collectors Club, thank you for bringing me this person. Because actually, she found me through them, was going to tell the story on them, not on them, in their podcast. And she got a reading for me and she's she's in my Patreon, plug. And she's in the Sacred Scholar tier where I post classes, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And I did a Q&A and she's the only one that showed up. So, we talk about this. You'll hear from Sara what we talk about, what happened in that Q&A, which tells me I'm going to have to change the Q&A thing I'm doing on my Patreon. But anyway, she's telling me these stories and I'm like, girl, you need to come on my podcast. Don't be telling me how you're putting it together for Bigfoot. I mean, I love the BCC boys, but I've never had one of these stories. So yes, I'm so excited for you guys to hear. And by the way, I had to cut down some stuff because not only does she have this story, but she had several other stories, Dogman story, and I said, let's save it for later, send in more stuff. She can come back on. That leads me to making sure you all know I need your stories. The House Medium at Gmail, please send them in. I have a couple announcements. I'm not going into the Medium Brew Cafe today, and I'll tell you why. But don't worry. Next week, I'm definitely going in because you will find out why in a minute. And not only that, but I'm going to have a little holiday, coffee special, meaning like I'm going to just do my own thing. I'm always trying other people's stuff, but I have my own concoctions. And someone asked me to show pictures of my lavender syrups and my vanilla syrups and all the things I make. And I'm going to do a little something for the holidays. Okay. Secondly, the person that I'm going to have on, I got to make sure because sometimes I like plug stuff and then life happens, guys. What can I say? But the person I'm going to have on is Kelly, and her and I want to talk about the products we have brewing. Did you like that? Anyway. That will be mugs that will have my sayings: follow yourself, follow no one, listen to your inner voice. The House Medium mugs are going to be very different because I have someone who knows what they're doing, has the creative gene in them. Not that I don't have a creative gene, but I just don't have the eyes for that. Does that make sense? Anyway, she's making this and she's improving on my wands. We're turning them into resin, and they're going to be 2 different types. I'm so excited about this. So she's going to come on my podcast. Sure, she has a story because I know her. She took a lot of my classes back in the day when I was doing tons and tons of classes in person. I've known her for a very long time. We became friends. So she's going to come on, and not only are we going to talk about what we have brewing for everybody, but also her stories and everything. So I'm so excited about that. So I'm going to save Medium Brew Cafe for then. And of course, I don't know why, because she's asking me things to put on the mugs. Obviously, I'm going to put Medium Brew Cafe. Come on, Adela. Get with it. Okay. However, today we need to step into the spaceship. Yeah. Okay, guys. First, hello. We need to step into the spaceship. Guys, here's the thing. We're stepping it in again because I messed up the sound. A little bit loud, spaceship. Has anybody been following all of these drones being spotted over New Jersey? And if you live in New Jersey or the UK or New York or any of the areas that these drones are being spotted, please write into the housemedium@gmail.com. Come on. We need to talk about this. Now, here's what I want to say. I did a little video on this on my Instagram and on my TikTok. Do I believe they're UFOs? No, they're not. Let's just put it this way. Do UFOs, do aliens need drones to be seen and heard? No, they do not. First of all, they're interdimensional. They can pass through time and space. And second of all, they're not going to use drones, okay? I believe they are man-made. I believe they are obviously man-made either by our military or someone's military. I absolutely believe that there's a couple things I believe. One, I feel like they're testing us out to kind of see how comfortable we are about seeing these things. Because I don't know if you remember, but I shared a long time ago a experience that I had with a being standing at my bed and then going into the space and them talking about having to get us used to seeing them and believing in them. So I definitely believe there's been a push to slowly get people comfortable with the concept that aliens exist. As you know, they already mentioned aliens are in the water, which is not shocking to me, that this is a place they can hide. Oh, excuse me. Let me get some water. Anyway, they talked about this. They've come out with that. They've come out with all these things. So I believe there's like a testing ground, but it could also be a little bit of let's get people a little weirded out so that we can start using these things. I just kind of have this feeling it's either someone spying on us, which could be, but the only thing that doesn't make sense about that is if it was someone spying us, we would take them down. And this has been going on for weeks. And if you don't know about it, go down the rabbit hole either online or on TikTok. If you go on TikTok, be careful because you're going to go down some other rabbit holes where everyone believes they're absolutely UAPs, UFOs, aliens. You could also go check out the BCC Boys did on their Patreon if you're on it. Because of course I reached out to Michael and he's like, yeah, we're already on it. We already posted on our Patreon. But be careful down the rabbit holes you go down because there's a lot of people who are believing a lot of crazy things, which, I mean, I'm open to all of them, but I just don't see ETs need drones. They're very barbaric for an ET. They're advanced for us, but they're not advanced for them. So I do believe that these are man-made, and a long time ago, I saw this black triangle square, met a guy weirdly in this weird kind of way from the Air Force who told me that they were man-made. So I kind of feel they're doing this and I feel like we get used to it. We almost get over it. And then they're like, oh yeah, we're going to start using these or something. And then it just slowly gets us comfortable with all of these things. That's what I believe is happening. Coming out with, to the government in the United States is coming out saying, yes, there are aliens. They do exist. Yes, there's UFOs. I feel like all of these things are to get us comfortable. Because by now, if you notice, if you go online, people are like, yeah, okay, there's aliens, whatever. That's what they want. The more comfortable we get, because it's not going to be, aha, here's a reveal. Here's an alien life form. Let's meet him and have him or her and them and have them talk to us. Because that would disrupt all of religion, and religion would flip out, and this would flip people out. But I do believe they're getting us more and more and more and more comfortable. That's what I believe. So go check it out if you haven't read about it. I mean, is this not like if this was any other era? Seeing like drones flying all over the place. If this was even 5 years ago, people would be freaking out. But today, people are freaking out, but they're still like open and ready, maybe even wanting this to be alien. Listen, I'm down. You down? You down? Because I'm down. I've been waiting. Let's go. Let's do it. And the other thing that I think is interesting, and we'll leave the spaceship, is that paranormal people, psychics, seers, we've been talking about this stuff for years. And now they're like, okay, you're not crazy. Thank you. Thank you. We know there's things that exist in this world that don't explain. Now, we can't explain. Now, the drones, do I believe that's that? No. Do I believe we could have engineered this from seeing advanced technology? Yeah. Why the term is getting lost. You guys fill it in. It's not backward engineer. Reverse engineered? Yes. Even that guy I met in this weird, that I told you, that story I told you in the lift, who was asking me about what I do and said, I'm surprised the government hasn't approached you to work for them. He even said we reverse engineer. So I'm just saying, interesting times. All right, leaving the spaceship, and we're going to dive right into the story because it's a long one. It's a long one, and I cut it down. Let's just put it that way. I cut it down because she had other stories. I don't know why I'm yelling. I tend to yell if I put my headset too far on my ear. I want people to remember that I do have this podcast on my YouTube. So you can always watch it as well. Do I hear from you? And by the way, where are the Spotify wraps? Because I'm waiting to be tagged. I better be on the list. I better. Okay, let's get into it. All right. You're like, gosh, Adela, you're just like threatening us? Yes, I am. All right. Hey, beautiful lady. I'm Sara, leaving out her last name. I had talked to you about my paranormal experience during a live Q&A. You asked me to send them to your email for your podcast. Feel free to post together or separately. 2 of the stories are really long, but lots of good details. Okay, I'm just adjusting. I never could tell, like the music always sounds a tad bit louder in recording than it does to you guys. So that's why I'm always playing with it. Okay. So I did only take the main stories and leave out all the other little stories she has, and you'll understand why she has so many stories when you hear about where she lives. Feel free to post together separately. Okay, 2 of the stories are really long, but lots of good details. I've been building these encounters from bits I remember over the years, hoping to post to Bigfoot Collectors Club or Sasquatch Chronicles, but I poached her. So too bad she's here with me. Here all of my I feel very lucky. Thank you. Here are all of my very detailed Bigfoot and Dogman encounters from my family, all in chronicle order, and all encounters were in Del Norte County, California. I'll put together another one of the send you about my ghost or spirit encounters. Okay, so she was very organized. From 1996 to 1997 in Redwood State Park at Mill Creek Campground. Now, we get into this when I interview her. If you don't know about the redwoods, they are giant, beautiful trees that my mom used to take me every year. And me being a rebellious teenager, used to kind of reject it and read a book. It would drive her crazy. Now I have a lot of appreciation because they are magical. We were hiking very deep in the woods and trail. Dad gets a very bad vibe. He felt he needed to be hyper vigilant on the guard of us. He checked himself for weapons and remembered he only had a pocket knife. He held the knife in his pocket the entire hike after he had this feeling, then gently ushered us back to our site, to our trailer, without altering us to the danger. After I had my encounter with this danger feeling, I believe this was a Dogman encounter. Interesting. 2001-02 in Redwood State Parks were camp hosts at Jed Smith Campground. So they're the camp hosts. So if you haven't gotten the picture now, they live in this. They live and she'll explain when I interview, but where they live is like the border between Northern California and Oregon. And it is gorgeous, but it is very, very rural. So she is in the thick of all of this. Okay, late one night, we were watching TV and we're going to bed. I was asleep. The campground was empty for the winter season. My parents hear a loud howl. At first, they thought it was campers who checked in after hours. They often are drinking and howling. They then muted the TV to hear the sound better, which caused me to wake up. With it quiet and all four of us now awake, we all heard an extremely and not so distant ahoo that then turned into a bellow. 3 howls total. And quiet the rest of the night. 3 of them. Interesting. That number is very kind of magical. Interesting. Okay. Late August 2003 at dusk. There were 4 of us girls. 2 13-year-old girls and 2 12-year-old boys. Sorry, 4 of us children, not girls. Both of which are brother and sister pairs. So Sonia, my best friend, Sara, myself, we're all watching TV. So this is like always happening when they're like watching TV. These paranormal encounters. It's very, very movie-esque, right? We're watching TV in our trailer while the boys, Max and her brother, and Alex, my brother, were out riding their bikes. Okay. Suddenly, the boys burst through the door, excited to talk all at once. Sara, we just saw Bigfoot. Hurry, you have to come see. My brother's coming to me because I'm the best at tracking in our family. The boys often being jokesters and playing pranks, we weren't too quick to believe them, which totally makes sense. Like, someone, but even in their area, it's like, are they just messing with us? Something this time seemed different. In my brother's voice, I hear a hint of fear. So I say, okay, we're going to need supplies. Quickly, I gather binoculars, a camera, and a 13-inch ruler. I mean, when I first read this, I was like, why is she getting a ruler? And then I went, aha, she's measuring the feet, right? I mean, your experience, Sara, that would not be, this tells you what they're used to, which I think is awesome. The 4 of us set off to where they had their encounter, urgently rushing us in the entire way. Once we arrived, my brother Alex started to tell us what happened. We were riding our bikes and we had stopped here for a minute. I looked at the tree line on the hill and a tree snag caught my attention. I pointed out the snag and said, Max, doesn't that tree snag look weird? Only to have thought to be a tree to turn at the waist to face them. I just get chills. So just so everyone knows, a tree snag is when the branch breaks, because Sara explains it and you'll hear, and it's just like kind of like a log sticking up and it turns to face him. Wow, which shocked them, and they hopped back onto their bikes. I bet they did, and beat feet home. I had him show me where he first saw the creature and / animal. He and Max guided us, but refused to even enter the forest. Oh, I didn't remember reading that part. Okay, that makes sense. The tree line meets the road that loops around the RV park from the edge of the road. The forest floor inclines incredibly steep and stays like that for a few hundred feet to the top of the mountain. Just a few feet in the tree line is a trail that parallel the mountain. They point about 20 feet up the side. It started there and took a couple of steps up the hill, then walked right paralleling the mountain. Sonia and I walked to the spot they saw it at first. In the redwoods, the dirt is really tons of pine needles that are turning to dirt, a very light, fluffy, and even bouncy ground. This is called duff. This makes it very hard to track. Human footprints don't make a dent in the material. I could see a disturbance to the area. It could have stood and find a few spots that could be footprints. After taking a couple of steps up the hill, I found a game trail. None of us knew this was up there. This trail parallel the trail at the bottom of the hill. She's very detailed. I can see some light disturbance in the depth. These spots were measured at 13 with the 13-inch ruler, about 6 to 8 inches across and 13 to 14 inches long, but very vague due to the fluffy duff. Each spot is about 3.5 to 4 feet from each other to mark the gate. So how wide the footing was, the steps were. That of which I could barely reach at a split. After I follow a few of these tracks on the trail, there was foliage across the trail I couldn't see past. At this moment, the thought popped in my head that if you follow these tracks, it will lead to the creature animal. And I was not ready to meet this face to face yet. With Sonia a few feet behind me, I turn to face her and I tell her, let's go to the bottom of the trail with the boys. At this moment, a disgusting smell overwhelms us. I ask her if she can smell this. She can. The closest smell I can relate it to is a landfill, kind of a combination of rotting food, poop, and wet dog. We used to have one here in our small Northwest California town. As a camp host of the Jed Smith State Campground, we would sometimes have to do a dump run. The pungent smell overwhelms and burns the nostrils. This is exactly the smell I'm reminded of. We run down the hill. We run down to the boys and all start right following the trail at the bottom. We had only walked 6 feet into the forest, my brother and I leading and our city friends following. Alex has the binoculars. At this point on the trail, we are exactly parallel to the spot covered in foliage that disrupted my view. From this downhill angle, there is a break in the foliage about 1 feet by 1 feet, almost a perfect circle with a dark background. Alex uses the binocular and says, Sarah, I see it. Here, look, you see that little opening? It's right there, pointing to the area. I take the binoculars, look 20 feet up the hill where this little window is. To my amazement, I see beautiful amber eyes looking into mine. At first, I think this must be pareidolia, a psychological phenomenon that causes people to see recognizable shapes or patterns, including the human face. So she's kind of describing scrying, where you can see things within things. I call that scrying as a magical thing. Okay, but this face is too perfect. Am I imagining this? I put the binoculars down and look to Sonia on my left and say, I can see it. It's right there looking at me. I put the binos up and this face is now turned sideways. By the way, you can tell she's experienced because she's using short verbiage, binos. At first I was like, what's she talking? Binoculars. It's like, she's experienced. Sonia, it's looking at you. Binos up, looking at me again. This time, I take time to really look. Remember every inch of its face with a dark brownish, dark grayish color of skin. Large yellow, dark amber eyes, so vibrant like fire. A large pin nose with flared nostrils, followed by slightly protruding mouth area with large but extremely thin lips. Exactly like a gorilla. I noticed the expression on its face. Its eyes seemed pained with the look of fear across its face. At this point, I'm thinking, this is a gorilla. I found an escaped zoo gorilla. I put the binos down. This is also when the thought struck me that this is a wild animal, and we are very close. No matter how majestic it is, it could become dangerous, especially from fear. At this very moment, we hear a crashing of a bush 40 feet up the hill and see something on 2 legs run diagonally and down to the trail at 20 feet up the hill. I recognize this creature as the creature I was just looking at. 2 seconds after the bush furthest up the hill explodes, the bush 20 feet up the hill explodes, and another creature pops out. It's now following the first, right on its heels, and out of the view. At this moment, all four of us explode to the top of each other, running as fast as we can to the left and the entire way home, I bet. Now all four of us burst into the door, talking over each other. My mom, we've experienced my brother being the jokesters. We are hesitation to believe him. I never the one to tell fictional story. My mother believed. She believes all four of us. She contacted the Befro and our small town paper, the Befro investigation, and he was a middle school teacher and a career in the schools for 20 years. I guess that's Bigfoot. I forgot to ask what that is. Alex, I showed him the area and acted out the events only to enter the area again with an adult by our side. Once we were in the area of the binocular sighting, we sent Alex up 20 feet to the upper game trail. As I stand where we spotted it, Alex standing where the Bigfoot was, we asked him to get on his hands and knees. Alex's face was still too high to fit into the one-by-one clearing. He then asked Alex to lay on his belly, and all of a sudden his face appears a frame perfectly between the brush. This is the behavior that at the time very few investigators were aware of. Mr. Teacher Man confirmed our story and some Bigfoot behavior we hadn't known prior to the event. He believed our story, and he even put out a scent chip from female gorillas. Unfortunately, Befro doesn't post our account because paper published the story. I believe and feel they were two younger Bigfoot, lean in, body about 6 to 7 feet, with red-brown hair or fur that matches the redwood dead pine needles. So I think she's saying because they didn't because it was published in the book. She was in the book published in the paper. They weren't able to publish their story in Befro. But crazy, right? Like, this is a lot. It wasn't just one Bigfoot, it's two Bigfoot. I mean, a lot going on here. So much going on. This is like a pretty detailed, pretty amazing story. So let's hear what I had to say, which I don't think, it's not like I'm going to reveal anything different, but still, let's hear what our conversation, and she's very detailed. By the way, Sara, I think you should be an investigator or something because your details are on spot. Let's hear what she has to say, and I have to say back. Hi, everybody. Okay. We have our first Bigfoot. I was going to say Bigfoot collectors. We have our Bigfoot story. The first. I am so used to saying Bigfoot Collectors Club. I
Yeah.
literally can't even say it. Story from Sara. This is Sara. Hi, Sara.
Hi.
So you heard me read her email. And let me tell you, everyone, we're going to talk about it. I pared it down because she had other incidences, but I was like, Sara, you gotta want, leave them wanting more. So,
Yeah.
so she has Dog Man and some other interesting stories, but this is I wanted to focus on the main Bigfoot encounter because it's pretty significant. And I have lots of questions. And to be fair, we should tell people Sara's the only one who came to my Q&A. By the way, Patreon people, she's the only it was me and her alone drinking martinis,
I
and
love it.
she was cooking.
Yeah.
She was cooking up a storm. I was am I coming over? What's happening? No, she was like cooking. She's like, oh, I'm going to cook a little something. And she's like chopping and she's got an apron. I'm like, wait, this looks like not just like I'm just going to throw something on the stove.
There's like some serious serious
Yeah,
cooking going on. You're
my
like a big
food
cook.
is my love language, and I take it very seriously.
Yeah, she was chopping things, and then she was like going to like shaking things and like stirring things. It was like a witchery kitchen in there. And I was like, "Oh, so you're like cooking?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm cooking. I'm not like warming shit up." And I was like, she didn't say it like that. I gave her that tone, but just it was just me and her doing a Q&A for the Sacred Scholar people on the classes I post, which I'll be posting a new class this month. And I was like, all right, cool. So just so you know, everyone, yeah, missed out. So, but the cool part is during that time, she was like, "Oh, I have these crazy stories. I want to like know what's up with it." And I was like, excuse me, this should be on my podcast. Thank you very much." So she sent it in,
Oh
right?
yeah,
So we should establish with everybody that you live in like the redwoods, right? You pretty much live amongst the redwood trees.
I do. Real quick. Yes, I live in Northern California, as far in California as you can get, right on the
Yeah.
Oregon border. And
Yeah.
up here, it's called Del Norte County, and it's spelled Del Norte, but everybody
Yeah.
is pretty white up here. So, but and
Okay.
it is one of the densest redwood forests. Like Humboldt also is very big, but
Yeah.
really there is
Into
like no
Humboldt.
people here. Our town is only 8,000 people, and that's the biggest town in Southern
Wow.
Oregon and north of Humboldt. But
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, so it's very rural, and we have two state park forests just outside of our town. So
Mhm.
it's super super deep, super super old, and basically untouched. Really, there we still have a lot of old growth redwoods, which are my favorite,
Yeah.
and it definitely feels magical here. Yeah, you can definitely feel it when you're walking through the forest.
100%. You know, a little fun fact for everyone, if anyone cares. My mom used to drag me to the redwoods every year. And I say drag because I was kind of a brat about it. Because you know how if your parent, when you're young and your parents into something, you kind of rebel on purpose. That was me. So she's like taking me to these beautiful tall trees and I'm reading like a book because I did love to read, to be fair. But I have been there. I don't think I've been as far as yours because I know those are the huge, like insanely wonderful ones. And also just I've driven through and it's gorgeous.
Yeah, and
It's
we're
like
right on the
it's like
ocean too,
it's
which
like
is nice.
heaven. I
Yeah,
remember driving from here to Oregon and I was like, "Oh my god, if I believed in like a heaven, it would look like this for sure." It's
yeah.
yeah.
That's what my dad says. He goes, "This is God's country up here."
Oh, it's you guys, I can't describe it. It's breathtaking. It's like it is breathtaking. And so I know just even being amongst those trees in other areas of Northern California, it is magical
Yes, yeah.
for sure. Let's put it this way. When I got married in a smaller version of that. And you know, my kid's husband, who I'm no longer with, and we got married amongst there with some witches who kind of like lived in that forest somehow. And
Nice.
now I have a kid who's obsessed with trees. So I don't know. There's he wants to live like you. He's like, "You see
Yeah.
those trees? I'm going to live in that." That's what he says when he
Yeah.
gets older. Like
My
he
favorite
wait.
was we have these, they're called goose pin trees,
Mhm.
and it's where the fire has burned all the center of it out.
Okay.
And they're as big
Yeah.
as like a 5-person tent sometimes. And I
Yeah.
would hide in there and write in my journal.
Yeah, people have no idea how big they are. That's why I said where I got married, it was a smaller, and this was many years ago. But I definitely even at that time there was magic happening. I definitely feel like it was magic about my son and not about, we're friends now, my ex, but it wasn't us. It was definitely about I definitely feel like there's something going on. For Sure. Okay.
Next.
Okay, so let's get to you. Let's get to your story. Okay, so we start off. It starts off strong, by the way. So she's telling me that, just, I know some people might have heard the email and you're like, "Dog man is we'll get into it a little bit, but I got it. She has other stories, guys. We'll have her back on." Uh, and so this is 1996 in the Redwood State Park, right? Is that what you're saying? And you
Yes,
were
yeah. So
hiking.
I dated each one because I was
Yeah,
building
that was
it for
perfect. Yeah.
another podcast. So I was thinking back on these stories and really just trying to remember every bit of it and while I was writing them down.
To be fair, everybody, I did poach her a little bit. Not really.
Yeah,
I
there's
mean,
plenty.
she was gonna go on the BCC, but look, they have plenty of stories, okay? They have plenty of stories. And she was in my Q&A telling me about it. So I'm like, "Excuse me very much, but I think I should be the one you should
You
have."
definitely claim dibs.
I claim dibs because I haven't had one of these yet. So, I mean, I'm not feeling bad about it. Okay, so I love that you did date it. It does help. 1996 in the Redwood State Park, Mill Creek, we're hiking in the deep woods. Okay, let's start with that story where your dad gets the vibe. Take us through that.
So yeah, we were really little, and I think I was 6 years old. My brother was 5, and we lived in that state park. We had a 26-foot travel trailer, and we would camp host for state parks all over, and we loved doing that. It was very like the beginning of the Disney movie Pocahontas was my life, and
Okay.
I loved it. Not
Oh,
the end.
wow. You're like, "Don't come," we're talking just the beginning part, the
Yeah,
pretty part,
Mother
right?
Willow and my raccoon friends,
Yeah.
all of that. And so this state park is south of Crescent City, and it's actually super super deep in the woods. So you have like a 3 to 5 mile from the highway trip straight down, curvy wind, and then there's just this bowl on the other side. So directly through on the other side of the mountain is the ocean. So it's a huge mountain, and this little hamlet area is where they built the RV park or the campground. And it's like the campground is closed in the wintertime because it is so deep and dense in that forest.
Mhm.
And trees do come down in the winter. It is unfortunately one of the things that is scary and happens around here. And when they come down, it's not
Okay.
like, oh, a tree fell on my house. Like
No,
they've
it's like a
killed
giant.
families. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
whole families.
sure.
And yeah, when they
Wow.
come down, they literally explode. So they go kind of everywhere too. But so there's, even just branches of my one of my boyfriend was staying the night one night in high school, and there was a huge storm, and this branch from the redwood tree stabbed his truck and made it a unicorn. And the
What?
branch was like as big as his Toyota truck. So like if this gives you some references.
Okay,
And
good
yeah,
reference.
so it's
Yeah.
closed in the wintertime. It's very, very deep. It just feels deep. You feel like there's nobody there. In the summertime, it's packed with people. But so we were there. We'd be there in off hours, off season times, and then or slow times, which our experiences in a lot of these state parks is animals, all types of things would come in closer. And I mean, we've had a family of mountain lions walk past us in the state park.
Wow.
And
Wow. Okay.
we never ever saw them around the campground, but it they can tell there are not people around. They can smell there aren't people around and stuff. But there's
Right.
this trail that hikes up the hill, and we were with our family, and they always were teaching us like, this is redwood sorrel, you can eat this, and just fun nature times and stuff. And
Yeah,
my
it's
dad,
neat.
yeah, my dad was behind us, and all of a sudden he just had this weird feeling come over him, and he was on edge and very uncomfortable, and it made him feel he said he had to be like hyper vigilant is what he made it. And he
Mhm.
had the only thing he could do to he started hurrying us along the trail because he didn't want us, he was just nervous. We're real little kids, and he we're deep in the forest, and it's, he doesn't have anything to protect us with, and all he can think, he always carries a pocket knife in his pocket, so he had his hand on it because he felt so uncomfortable. My dad is like big teddy bear. He's huge, tall, and built like a linebacker. He
Yeah,
was.
yeah, yeah.
And not much makes him nervous or
Rattles
puts
him.
him on edge like that.
Right.
So it was a very weird thing. And from some research and just learning about animals and stuff, I've heard that infrasound can kind of do that. It gives you that feeling, even though you don't know what it is or where it's coming from. It's
Can you
under
explain
20
what
hertz where you
infrasound
can't hear,
can you
human
explain
ears
what
can't hear.
can you explain what infrasound is? Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so it's a section of sound waves that the human ear cannot hear, and they say anything under 20 hertz is what is called infrasound. And animals do this. They do it when they growl. They have the capabilities to do this. Humans do not in our voice box systems.
Mhm.
And only certain animals, I think, like lions can do it. Bears, I
Mhm.
think, can do it. And wolves, like predator animals for the most part.
Okay.
But only, I think there's only, don't totally quote me because I'm not totally positive, but I think there's only a few of the predator animals that even can really do it. But it's an older thing that dates back to prehistoric animals and stuff. But it
Okay.
is how they communicate still too, and let other animals that they're with, either know there's danger nearby or they're feeling for threatened, or they use it to push us away because it makes us feel uncomfortable and keeps
Mm.
us out of their area.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. This kind of this kind of validates what I've always heard from the other realm, which is that animals hear a frequency which we live on, that we can hear each other. And when we get signs from the spirit world, they're basically saying, you know, if that they can communicate with the animals here that can hear them, and they'll cooperate. Like, that's how the butterfly flies. It's almost like they're
Yeah,
operating
that
on a
makes a lot of
different
sense. Yeah.
they're operating on a different frequency. So anyway, that's really interesting. Okay, so you kind of feel that's what was happening with your dad,
Yeah,
basically.
and honestly, for the most part, that's basically the story. He started going, hurrying us along. He probably made some excuse like, "Oh, I'm hungry. Let's go get lunch," or something like that. Because he
Mhm.
did. Because now, since this, we've talked about our Bigfoot stories frequently.
Mhm.
When we learn new research and go, "Do you think that's what that was?" We often have these little family discussions. Um, I honestly believe, like, my parent, like you teach too, everybody can kind of is open a little bit to
Right.
psychicness. And you teach everybody how to harness that and really hone it, and that's great. And I totally believe I get it from my parents for sure.
Yeah, sounds
We've
like it.
talked about other moments when we were in Gettysburg, just the heavy, weird feeling of that whole
Mhm.
area.
Yeah.
You could
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
it when we drove in, yeah.
Right, right, right. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, so he just was like, I just knew I needed to get you guys back to camp. And so he did whatever he could to kind of usher us that way. And that was really it. He never really felt it again. So I would probably imagine it was that infrasound just saying, "Hey, you're in my area, go away." But
Yeah.
cuz nothing else weird happened later the night or several days or anything like
Okay.
that.
Okay. Okay, interesting. So that's the first story. So 2001, 2002, Redwood again. And then you're watching like TV late one night and the campground was empty. Is this the main story that we're getting into? No. Not
No,
yet,
that
right?
one's one before. So that was the year prior to this story, though.
Okay. Yeah, but this is a good one too because we gotta hear this one from your mouth. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was dead asleep and we were in our little 26-foot trailer. At this time, I think I'm 10 years old and my brother is 9. We were already asleep. It was real, real late, like probably 12 or later. I'm not
Mhm.
totally sure, but it was like pretty deep in the night. My parents were still up watching TV. Same thing. So for this state park, this one's Jed Smith, which is also in Delnart County. It
Okay.
is north just a tiny bit of Crescent City and east about 10 miles. So it's like the other side of that national forest.
Mhm.
And it's right on the river, the Smith River. It's one of the third cleanest river in the world. The other two are in
Okay.
Alaska.
Really? The 3rd cleanest?
Yeah, so and that may it's been a while like when we were with the state parks, we did all the water testing and we did water collections, and we've done that for through high school a little bit, and then we kind of stopped. So could have changed several times,
Right,
since
right,
then,
right.
but it was for a very long time, yes.
Nice.
We
Okay.
don't have any dams. It's a okay sized river, but it really isn't huge, and there are no dams on it, and there are no motors allowed on it. So anything you
Oh,
use is like rowing and stuff, but it's for the
okay.
salmon. We keep it real, and the community, we all drink out of it.
Oh, okay, wow. Okay, that's so cool. Oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Okay,
And
cool. I love all these little fun facts.
yeah, I'm full of them too.
I know, it's just I remember when we were talking, that's why I knew this would be good. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so my parents were this was one another dead time that was coming to end of season. There was absolutely nobody in the park at the time. And it's late at night and we hear hooting and hollering and yelling, which is something we frequently hear in the campground because people like to go and get drunk and
Right.
have a good old time.
Party.
And every now and then we'll have to come and just, remind them there are other campers around.
Yeah,
So
you're not
they were
alone.
kind of tuning into that and like, oh, do we have campers that checked in late or whatever?
Mhm.
So they paused the TV and mute it, which this actually is what woke me and my brother up. Um, and so I'm hearing them talk and they go, "No, what is that? Can you hear?" Yeah. And then it goes again. And it was this really interesting call. So it sounds like since then there have been lots of recordings of these
Yeah,
Bigfoot. And
yeah.
so we've listened to these and it very much sounded what I think is the Ohio calls is what it's called.
Okay.
And it's kind of this woo, and then it would kind of like a whoop almost, but then it would like kind of change at the end. And so it kind of would sound like people like howling like that weird or like a wolf or
Mm.
something. But then it was
Right.
like, oh, that's not that's not a person or an animal.
Oh, okay. Right.
And so yeah, I think we heard 3 of them. I was only awake for 2 of them. And then it
Mhm.
just had stopped and the park went totally silent again.
Okay.
And that
Wow.
was kind of it for that one. The next year, we had been
Two
camp
thou
hosts for
the August 2003
yeah,
we're
oh
going
yeah,
to?
so
Okay.
next 2 years.
Okay.
We had moved right across the street from that campground, and there
Mhm.
is a small town called Hayuchi. It's a native word. And it has a gas station, market, and one hotel with like 20 rooms, and that is the whole town. And a couple of RV parks. And
Okay.
there's a real nice one that we lived in for 15 years, and we
Mhm.
just loved it there. Like we loved living in Jed Smith so much that we were like, we're gonna move across the street and stay here.
Okay.
So again, same forest, same mountains. It's right across the street, even though
Mhm.
this is not. It's national park land, but it's public land too. So like people own the land. but
Okay.
the whole forest is national forest. So
Mhm.
interestingly, I after this encounter and later when I became an adult and stuff, I was doing some of my own research and stuff, and they say that Bigfoot like to live in caves. Makes sense. We did for a long time. And
Right.
there's actually a old mine that's just less than a mile the way the crow flies, and it was closed in the 1920s, and it was a gold mine. So it's been closed since then, and it's actually collapsed a few times, but you can still get in and out of it in a couple of spots. And there also is right down the road is where the Smith River has a Y fracture. It's like the fork of the river. It's Middle Fork and South Fork Road or River, and
Okay.
they all meet. This is all kind of in the same little 2 mile area, and where the state park is on the other side of the river. So we always played there. There's a big pond with a bunch of like the massive koi fish and ducks, and we'd always they have big old basketball court. It's just a nice little park, and we were always out playing, riding bikes, doing all kinds of stuff. We had friends, my friend Sonia and my brother's friend Max. They were both, I'm just going to use first names, but
Yeah, definitely.
they were both she was my age and Max was my brother's age, and they're a year apart also, so it was just perfect. And they lived in town, so when we wanted to go to town and play, we'd go to their house and stay, and then vice versa. They'd come to Hayuchi and we'd do river days and stuff in the forest.
Mhm.
And my brother, so me and Sonia inside watching TV, hanging out, being teenagers.
Mhm.
And our brothers are out riding my bike and my brother's bike, and they're just doing laps and doing whatever. All of a sudden they come busting through the door, all talking over each other at once. And my mom's like, "What is happening?" Like, what? And then they're, "We saw Bigfoot. We saw Bigfoot. Sarah, you have to come. You have to come see." And we're
Yeah.
like, okay, our brothers play jokes on us and like prank us constantly.
Mhm.
So we
As brothers
immediately
do.
do not believe that.
Yeah, exactly.
And
The
but
boy who cried Bigfoot.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we are like, okay, what, so something though was off, like the way what he had this time, which he never did when he was pranking us, was I could see a little bit of fear in him. It was different. So
Yeah.
this is like the only time I went, well, maybe he is sees something or
Right,
did have
right.
something happen. So I got a little more like, okay, we'll go check it out. I was like, but if we're gonna go, we're gonna do this right. So grab the camera, grab flashlight, because even though it's like the middle of the day, as soon as you like step foot into the redwood forest, it is like almost pitch black. It really is super dark.
Oh, wow. So it
And
really is like in the movies and stuff where it's like you go into the Black Forest.
yes, yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
it's because
interesting.
the canopy is up so high, so the regular trees stop growing at 250 feet, and coastal redwoods continue to grow for another 100 feet. And
Yeah.
they have different pine needles. The pine needles take in the fog instead of, because it can't pump over 250 feet. That's like gravity and the earth and all that.
Oh,
So
wow.
they take it in from the top because there's so much fog and wet up here also.
Okay.
And so that extra 100 feet of tree that is nowhere else in the world, it makes for a very, very dark forest.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. And like obviously light still trickles in and you can still see, but it is very much darker than.
Right, right.
And so we grab a ruler. It's like a 13-inch ruler and a just a flashlight and a camera, I think, and binoculars.
Mhm.
And so we go to the spot, which is funny. It was like right across from the office area, which people come to all the time. It just seems such a weird spot,
Yeah.
but it's not so weird because it is just so deep forest everywhere around here.
Right, right, right.
But so he says we are riding our bikes, we pull up and we just stopped and we're talking and we're looking into the forest, and he goes, "Hey Max, do you see that tree snag? That's a really weird looking tree snag." And those are when a tree breaks off like halfway up or halfway down or whatever.
Mhm.
There are no branches, it's just like a log sticking in the
Mhm.
air. And then all of a sudden, like, the tree looked like this,
For
turns like this at the waist
people
to
not
my
watching,
brother.
she's like, yeah, she's turning from her side.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So right at his waist, he turns totally 90 degrees and is facing my brother and Max, and they both freak out, and then it
Oh
takes a few
my
steps
god.
up the hill and out of view. And they come booking it to us and come and get us. So we are now have quickly collected all these things and are walking back down. And the whole time we're walking down, they're like, "No, it was just crazy," like so
Yeah.
animated
Right.
and still worked
Right.
up.
Right. The adrenaline is pumping through them.
Yeah, and as soon as we get there, they're like pretty quiet. And Max doesn't even come into the forest with us. He's staying on the road. So it's like road, ditch, and then hill goes straight up for like a few 100 feet. And that's the other thing about the mountains around here is they're super steep. It's kind of like that Alaska kind of vibes. And
Yeah.
so he points up the hill, and just beyond the ditch where the hill starts, there is a game trail at the bottom. And it's obvious people walk on it, and there is, I think, people get from one trailer park to the other one that's owned by
Mhm.
different people. And then there's also a nice neighborhood with really nice houses that way also.
Mhm.
So he points up the hill from that trail, and it's just about 40 feet from the bottom trail. And I walk up to where he's pointing at. And I do see, so I'm one of the best trackers in our family, which is also why my brother came to get
Oh,
me.
nice. Yeah.
And so I'm looking, so Redwood Forest is super hard to track in because it's all that pine needle duff, and it's super fluffy, super soft, and like it truly is like bouncy. So, and then
Yeah.
usually wet also.
Yeah. I've
And
been on it. Yeah.
yes, yeah, yeah. So really hard to see. You don't see much. You just can see some scuff marks and things. So like that's how I knew something had been through, but it really takes something big to do that because it is so hard to make any kind of
Dent.
imprint or patterns in there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't super, super defined, but I could tell it was about 11 inches by 6 to 8 inches, maybe. And it
Mhm.
just looked like maybe somebody with a shoe walked by, like it was just a tiny little scuff. And then I look for the next one, and it's about 4 feet from the other one. And I'm like, that's pretty far. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, what's going on here? So, and I find about four of them, and I'm trying to pace them out with my own legs, which I'm very short, and I was not able to do very well. I was basically almost doing like a lunge split, and I was like, okay, yeah, this isn't a human or like even an adult, really,
Right.
possibly a really tall adult, but I was like, yeah.
Most
So
likely
now their
not.
story is starting to be like, oh, this feels weird.
Yeah.
And my friend Sonia is up on that. I was like, Alex, there's a trail up here. And so it took one step onto this second game trail that's 40 feet up the hill, which I did not even know was there. And I was like, oh, there's another trail up here. And then I followed the steps, was looking at him and stuff. And then Sonia was behind me while I'm looking at these steps. And the trail kind of closes off, and it has foliage over the trail, and I can't see past that point very well. And so I
Mhm.
go, well, if I follow these tracks, it's going to lead me to the animal. Most often than not, that's what happens in the forest, which is why Alex came to get me.
Okay.
And I go, am I ready to see a Bigfoot up close in person? No, I don't think so. So
You're like,
I
"Did
turn
I
around.
did I
Yeah.
did I did I
Yeah.
prepare
Do I want,
myself
like,
for this? Like, I've
yeah.
come this far, and now I'm not sure what I'm gonna actually do when we
Yeah.
meet
Or what it's going to do when I get there.
or what it do." Right,
So I go,
right.
no, this is probably not a good idea. So I turn around and
Baby.
all of a sudden we can smell this like really awful smell. And with the state park, we had taken dump runs before. We had an old landfill that's no longer, well, it's buried now, but we don't use it anymore in town. And that was the only time I'd been to a landfill or a dump, and the only time since. And it is truly horrible, unimaginable smell. Just everything rotting, really nasty.
Right, right, right.
And so it kind of had this like rotten eggs, rotten
Did it smell
smell
like
to it.
sulfur?
Yeah, like kind of. And like, because
Mhm.
unfortunately that was like kind of the overwhelming landfill smell, like rotting meat, sulfur, kind of
Yeah, yeah.
wet dog ish, a little like that musty smell like bears have
Mhm.
and things. And I was like, "Do you smell that, Sonia?" And she was like, "Yeah, what is that?" And I go, "I do not know." And I think I can't remember if this at the time that was like there was some knowledge that wasn't like super common knowledge for Bigfoot people. They were just the true diehard investigators that were compiling this data back then. And
Mhm.
I can't remember if that was one of the things or not that we knew at the time, and made me nervous also. But we decided to go back down the hill to the boys,
Mhm.
and it's only 40 feet. We can all see each other and everything. It's super not a far area. So we follow the bottom trail, and about where that spot where in the foliage I could not see, Alex, my brother, so I believe he's also a little sensitive like I am, and he's definitely he definitely just is a little sensitive. So he was the one that actually was able to feel where it was first, and he
Okay.
points to the foliage, and there's this like 1 foot by 1 foot oval space right at the trail that I was standing up at 40 feet up. And it's the duff is like a red brown color,
Mhm.
dark brown, dark black.
Okay.
And it just looks like the dirt to me. So I don't know exactly what he's pointing at. And then he has the binoculars and he hands them to me and he goes, "It's right there in that opening." And I cannot see anything. It's only 40 feet from us. I put the binoculars up and I see a freaking face. And I'm like, my brain is like not computing what's
Trying
happening.
to comprehend what is
Yeah.
this face.
Yeah. So and I'm like, is my brain doing that? Am I seeing a face because
Right,
I
right.
want to, or like what
Right,
is
right.
happening? And it really was just me not believing what was happening in the moment.
Yeah. That's
And I
common with
see,
these
because it's
type of
only
things.
40 feet, these aren't
Right.
super strong binoculars, but
Mhm.
I'm looking at it face to face, like it is right here in my face.
Mhm.
And I can see its detail and everything so perfectly. Its eyes were the thing that caught me the most. They were just so beautiful and like vibrant. Uh, it looked like a gorilla's face, and its nose and mouth all looked like a gorilla. It kind of had that up pointed but open flared nostrils nose of a gorilla, and the protruding mouth a little bit, how it comes out kind of like that, the muzzle,
Yeah.
but lips are like thin, like no lips basically.
Mhm.
And that all exactly looked like a gorilla.
Right.
Everything else did not so much. Like its eyes, although I did Google gorilla eyes and they are that pretty color amber. So it's close, but they were definitely different. They looked more human to me.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, gorilla's eyes kind of are close together almost,
Yeah.
and they can look like human, but not the, like, white around it or the shape around it, and what you're
Yes.
describing almost looks more humanish.
Yes. And yeah, so these were just like ours, where there's a lot of white space around it,
Right,
but they
right.
looked like the gorillas in the sense of the color for sure. But yes,
Mhm,
where they sat on the face, and so the skin was like a gray, a dark gray, blackish kind of color, dark brown,
okay.
and like kind of like a gorilla still. And then
Mhm,
its fur was like this, the red color, and
mhm.
matched perfectly to the pine needles. And
To blend in.
yeah, and I was like, oh, that makes total sense. And I'm like, I cannot believe what I'm seeing. Is this real? Is this really happening? Is this pareidolia or whatever? Where you see faces because your brain is trained to look for
Mhm.
danger like that.
Right.
And I pull the binoculars down and I look at my friend Sonia and I go, Sonia, I can see its face. And I put the binoculars back up and it's looking at her now. So now I know for a fact it is not my brain doing this. This thing has
Mhm.
turned its head. And I'm like, it's looking at you. And I put the binoculars up and it's looking back at me now. And I'm like, this is just, I really is having the feeling like, wow, this is just so magical and majestic. Like we're seeing an animal nobody else gets to see. Like, not realizing I'm also 40 feet away from an animal.
Right.
And so my brother starts to like not he starts to get weird a little bit, like he's getting uncomfortable and I'm just kind of like struck in awe. And then all of a sudden 40 feet above where this animal we're looking at is, there we hear sticks crack and brush break, and see something on two legs start running down towards the trail it was on, but possibly also to the trail we were on, because we're everything is like underneath it. So we see same color, red fur, full. It's like 6 feet, 7 feet. It wasn't super tall, but it was taller than
Mhm.
us. And
Yeah.
this all happens like within the same moment. Like my the Bigfoot up the hill cracks brush and runs out from behind a tree coming down the hill, takes our attention to that. The one that
Okay.
is directly in front of us pops up and runs directly behind it.
Oh
And
my
at that
gosh.
point, we all pop up and run back to the road.
So
And
there's
I'm
more than
like, don't be
one.
last. Just don't be last.
Oh my god.
And yeah, we bust in telling my mom the whole story. I'm like, oh my God, you have no idea what just happened. And I'm telling her, and
Mhm.
I get my pastels and I sit down and I start to draw it.
Oh,
And I
nice.
would have brought that, but I do not know where it is.
Okay. All right. This is like interesting. It's a lot. A
Yeah.
lot happening. Okay. Let's take a look. Um I feel like a little bit kind of strange because this is definitely not my arena. This is
Yeah.
definitely, you know, Bigfoot is just not something I encounter. But when, have been on the Bigfoot Collectors Club numerous times and kind of listened to them, and I have formed an opinion. And I would say, like, 100%, I believe that all these stories are for sure paranormal. And I definitely feel that what you saw is related. So, meaning like those first couple of stories are related to the last story. I feel like something, even though, first of all, I believe Bigfoot is more interdimensional than it is just this dimension. It makes me feel that's why they're able to kind of slip in and slip out, I don't feel like they're like animals per se. I feel like they're these other beings. Is the best way I could describe it.
Yeah.
That kind of like the Lorax, the ones that, take care of the forest, type of thing. And I feel that what's interesting is that the last vision you saw, like the one where your dad sensed something, I feel your dad sensed something that wasn't just animalistic. I mean, meaning wasn't just like a wolf or something. I
Yeah.
feel like he sensed like being watched or something.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
the same feeling you get like if it's like an alien or a spirit, you're like something's like otherworldly happening here.
Yeah.
And I feel like what's interesting is at the end, I think it wanted you to see him or her. They wanted to be seen. So it's almost like they were like, yeah, waiting for you to put those binoculars on and really get a clear view. I don't get the sense because I feel like if they didn't want you to pause and see them, then they would have just like took off, at the beginning.
Yeah, and that's what I was still so shocked about, like, because I'm used to dealing with actual animals from the forest. There's no way nothing's gonna hang out and wait for us to come back. Like, the fact that it was still in such a close proximity of where it was just last
Yeah.
saw was very
Mhm.
weird.
Yeah, I got the feeling it was like we've been doing this dance for a while. We kind of are here, and so let me like kind of like show you. I feel like the fear is kind of more like when you want someone to know you exist, but then you're kind of like, I'm not sure how you're going to react.
Yeah.
So it's kind of felt like you were being locked onto like, how are you going to react once you figure out that, you know, that I'm not of this world. I do feel like that was an absolutely real encounter because even the way you describe the eyes, I think that, and that I think I asked you this, you said it was upright when it ran, right? It wasn't like
Yes,
on its
yeah.
knuckle or anything.
Yes,
And the
yeah.
color of the fur you said was amber, right?
Yeah, like a reddish color. Red brown is what it looks like.
Which is kind of consistent to what people say, but most importantly is consistent to where you live, the redwoods. So it's
Yes,
almost
yeah.
like trying to blend in with the trees.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was exactly the color of the redwood bark and the dead pine needles. They all look the same color.
Yeah. Yeah, I do feel like this was like a real encounter, and this was something that you did experience. The fact that you didn't take a picture of it and didn't think to take a picture of it, I tend to believe those type of beings influence that because they won't allow it.
So, yeah, what actually happened was I did take photos of those spots and of the footprints and stuff, but it was a digital camera, but it was like one of the first digital cameras that
Did you
had
take
come out.
pictures after though? After it was all over?
Sorry, what was that?
After it was all over, you took pictures?
No, during the investigation, like at the beginning,
But
before
did you get a
we
picture
saw
of
it.
that of
But
them?
no, I didn't see anything in the pictures, and it was hard to see the footprint, so I ended up deleting all the pictures.
But see, that's what I'm saying. That's
Yeah.
kind of something I believe
Yeah.
paranormal-wise, that they kind of purposely make it so that you can't capture them, and then if you do, it doesn't come out very well, and
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm not surprised about that, but I feel like something otherworldly connected for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean,
And
I don't
that
feel
was
like
what
you
was
need
so
to tell
weird
me
is
that.
I should
You
have
don't need
been.
me to tell you that. Mhm.
Yeah, where I was standing, I should have been able to see it in the foliage. And I almost walked up literally on top of it when I was like, no, I don't want to encounter this thing like that yet. Like, so there were multiple times for me to see it very, very close,
Yeah.
and I did not.
Yeah. And honestly, I know this can sound like very much like an animal kind of hiding, but from what I found in the paranormal world, that's the type of thing they do. They try to kind of blend in. And, you could miss it. You know, it's not like in the movies. And I feel like something was trying to get your attention
Yeah.
to believe in it, but they weren't going to expose themselves.
Yeah, and when I walked up with my brother, I was like, I know my dad and my brother believe in this, but I do not. Like Santa Claus, I want to believe in this, but I do not think it is real. And then
So
right then and there, I was like, it is fucking real.
I was about to say the $1 billion question is, what do you think now?
Yes. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I was immediate a believer. I got my mom to believe, and because I don't make things up or tell
Yeah.
fanciful stories or prank people, I'm the responsible adult,
I'm telling you
older
that
sister.
the thing about paranormal stuff is that it will happen like that. It will happen like not it's not fantastical. It's not like you saw something and it floated in the air or whatever. You saw something behind a tree, it moved. You're like, this isn't something that should be here. That's how it usually is, everyone. Because what happens is it's kind of making you go like, did I see something? Is something happening? Or I could just easily brush it off to like, maybe I wanted to see something. And that's how those beings type of operate. They tend to operate like, I'm not going to fully tell you, yes, I'm here. I'm going to let you get a little peek into it, a little taste, and then it might drive you crazy forever because you're not sure.
And it lit because we've thought back on it. We've talked it out, me and my dad, Yeah, definitely.
That's because they know that the human beings cannot handle it all.
Yeah.
So if it just like came right out, walked up to you and just stared at you, you'd probably faint or something.
Honestly, nowadays, probably not. But
then, I
so
mean,
much has happened. But yes,
nowadays
back then,
you're
for
like,
sure.
listen, I made some coffee. We're going to sit down. And we're going to try to figure out why the hell you keep making it so hard for everybody. Like, just tell people you're here. All right? PF. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like I know those types of beings. Spirits are this way, aliens are this way, fae are this way. They kind of know, like, I'm going to do this with you, and no, you're not going to have evidence, and no, people probably won't believe you, and that's probably for the best, because it just kind of ruins what people tend to understand about the universe. So this was
here's
our
a
little
weird
experience.
thing real quick too. So now we don't live there anymore. We moved to town. So we now live near the ocean. But I'm still directly on the other side of that forest now. And there's even a road that's a state park road that drives from the fork in the river to town the back way, kind of. So it's a 5-mile road. And that is just 3-4 blocks up the hill from me, where that road starts.
Okay.
So same forest. And I have had, in this house, I've had lots of very weird paranormal encounters. And I can feel something standing in my room frequently, like in the corners. And I often wonder if it's Bigfoot and if it found me here on the other side. I don't know, but I often wonder that.
My feeling is that if you're feeling something in the corners, that's usually more the way spirits work. I tend to believe Bigfoot. This is just my belief, and I'm no expert at all.
Yeah.
Shout out to the BCC. Go check them out.
Yeah.
But when I tune into that, I feel like they're very much like they're the magic of the land. What people don't understand is that there are entities of the land.
Yes.
There are entities that come from the other realms and they peek through, and then there's entities of the land that kind of use like portals, if you want to call it, but I really see it more as they can like come and go between the energies. So same as fairy type of fae. So those type of entities kind of go, we're going to show ourselves in our home turf.
Yes. Yeah.
And they do that on purpose because it makes people not sure what's going on. It's the same thing with aliens. Aliens are interdimensional and they'll kind of peer in and let you see them, but they're going to stick to what they think people understand, like the sky or whatever. And as we start to understand things more, they're like, yeah, we're kind of not just about the sky. We definitely have other ways we're moving around. And I feel like Bigfoot is very conscious. And it's funny because it's not something I ever encountered or anything until I met, Michael and them. But anytime I've ever tuned into it, I definitely don't feel like Bigfoot's like an energy that just pops into your room. It's like it doesn't need to. It
Yeah.
needs the forest to kind of exist.
Word.
And it's kind of similar to spirits need electricity to kind of exist. They need to have some electrical, like whenever I do a house cleansing or something, many times it will be in a room that's connected to where the utility box is or where computers are. So their energy comes from the earth, the trees and things like this. So same with Fae, I feel like is like this, and because I've had those experiences with Fae of the earth. So I don't feel like the thing you're seeing in your room is that. I think it's probably more spirits. Sounds more like the way the spirit world works.
That makes total sense, and that's kind of what I think. So also is it because they feel the same, like because I always knew it was Bigfoot for sure up at that house, but I lived like literally in that forest. So on our house on the hill was on that same hill. So,
and I also want to add that this is the last, my input on it is for everyone to know, I fully believe they're protectors. I believe the whole, like, if you look at Dr. Seuss, the Lorax and all that stuff, I feel like is based off of Bigfoot. They're protectors of the earth and the trees and the land and things like that. What was that sound? Did you hear it?
Sorry, that was my phone. It went off.
Everybody, I have to acknowledge it because trust me, I get emails, people like at 5:52 minutes and 50, and I'm like, sometimes it's just something else, guys. Okay, it wasn't Bigfoot. But yeah, so I feel like they're actually protectors and they're protecting the land. They're almost like we're making sure you guys aren't getting too crazy, and we do kind of scare you off a little bit. It's kind of like gargoyles and things like this, or trickster spirits. Believe it or not, trickster spirits are there to kind of say, if you're going to come around in this realm, don't be messing around too much over here. We kind of test you and make sure. So I do feel like that's what happens. So it was an awesome story, Sarah. Thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks for coming on, and we'll have you back so you can share all the other stories, because she's got some spirit stories, some dogmen stories, a little bit of other Bigfoot, but it's one episode, so I just was like, let's just focus on the meat and potatoes this time.
Perfect.
Of Bigfoot, because that was a pretty big one, and I feel like, last question I have, did you write this in? Did you say that this was written into like a newspaper or local paper or something?
Yeah, so when I came back to the house and was telling Mom, first thing I said was like, you need to call police because there's a wild, like, a escaped gorilla out there right now. Which I'm glad she didn't do. But after she totally believed me, I drew the picture. She could see it. She contacted a teacher in the community who was part of BFRO, which is Bigfoot Research Organization.
Okay.
And he came out and investigated with us. We went over the location and story with him, and he immediately believed us. He was even saying, like, when we went up there, we had Alex be the Bigfoot in the spot because there was still that opening of the foliage. And we had him, we're all like, get on your hands and knees and we'll see if we can see you good. And I could not see him like I was seeing it. So he goes, lay down on your belly. And Alex does, and his face pops perfectly into that little spot.
Right.
And, that was one of the things that we did not know was like they do that everywhere, all over. And he did know. So he was like, this is telling me this is true and this happened to you guys besides just believing you,
Yeah.
So he
reported
it to the newspaper.
Are they hiding their body and so you could just see their face? I wonder why.
I think it just was they lay totally flat on their belly. Like,
On their
it is a
belly.
very human thing to not want to get dirty. Like, something that's from the
Yes.
forest would not
That's
care.
such a good point, Sarah. I knew I had to ask that last question. Damn. I'm a good interviewer because
Awesome. I'm glad.
I'm so proud of myself for asking you that, because I was reading that part and I was like, what? I need to ask her, what the hell is up about the belly thing? Like, what? But you're right, on human nature.
Yeah.
They're not going to get down on the belly. It's just they're going to crouch. We're going to crouch.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
so getting down the belly is definitely not a human thing. Interesting. So it knew to like blend in.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, even a lot of our down logs, they take other trees down with them. So there's always like space, but there's always like multiple logs stacked too. It leaves a lot of room to hide, but some of the trees are always not so big. So, and then like the ferns also in the area, they can grow up to like 6 feet tall. They're crazy.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, that makes it very interesting. And what I really like about the guy is he kind of reminds me of when I'm asking people questions and you've had experiences enough, and by the way people answer, it tells you what's going on. So he knew.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow, that was so awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. I can't wait to hear more stuff. And I'm sure everyone is going to have lots to say about this one. Sorry, BCC boys, but you have enough stories. Jesus. But you could always write into them too. I'm sure they'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they'll see this when I'm posting this. They're going to be like, what? But yeah, I appreciate, I mean, they do spirit stuff all the time. So I don't, you know, I've never gotten one of these. So you see, everyone, I like all the things. I
actually have a Santa Claus story I think I'm going to share with them.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for coming on, though. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Great story. Thank you.
Okay, so I did research, and BEFRO is the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. It was founded in 1995. So she would have been pretty like a newer case for them. So maybe when it's published in the paper, they don't really want to like go and investigate or publish it themselves. Anyway, as you can see, no surprise, I definitely believe it was Bigfoot. I definitely believe her, but I tend to believe Bigfoot is a paranormal entity. I don't really feel it's a gorilla. I don't, because if it was, it would have been caught pretty easily a long time ago. They walk on both legs. I do feel like this has been like fae, like fairy. And I do believe they're kind of almost like an alien being. You have to remember, I didn't tell her that part, but you have to remember, kind of tying into what I talked about earlier, you have to remember there's all different types of species of aliens. So in other words, like I always tell people, if someone came to our planet and they met me, they would describe me as an alien. If they just met you, they would describe you as an alien. What they would notice is that we have different features, but we have the same things, right? But if they met your dog, then that would be an alien to them as well. If they met your cat, that would be an alien to them as well. And that's what I believe is going on. 100,000%. I believe Bigfoot is an alien type of life form that lives in the forest, and they kind of protect the forest. I do believe these type of entities tend to want to protect certain things of our land because I think they don't think we understand how this planet really works. That's what I believe. Or we don't take care of it in the way we should. So I 100% believe the reason why the Bigfoot was scared is because they were like, oh no, we're getting found out. We didn't really mean to, but we kind of mean to at the same time. Like, are they going to be cool to us? Because I kind of feel like they wanted to be seen. They were still there when they came back, for one. So I do believe they wanted to be seen, but I also don't think they know how we're going to respond. Like, are you going to be cool? Are you going to freak out? What are you going to do? Because humans, you know, we're a little erratic. So I do believe that what people don't understand is when we talk about aliens, it's not just the ones that I'm wearing in these earrings right now, if you can't see, are green with the eyes, type of almond eyes. There are different types. Lastly, I wanted to share with everyone, I've always seen the tall blue ones. I've seen another one that was like medium height, human looking, but almost with like a head shaped like a light bulb. So it's like more big and round on top. But last 2 weeks ago, I had a dream of all these little tiny little aliens, like little tiny tiny ones. We're talking like up to my knee, and I'm 5'11". So, and I couldn't remember the dream, but there was just so many of them, and there was something going on, and I can't remember. I should have wrote it down, because I do believe sometimes these could be more than just a dream. But that's kind of my point, is that there's many different ones. So I do believe the reason why we catch them is because I think they can go through time and space, and they know how to kind of blend in and hide. And I think they have, even though they run and they walk, I do feel like they have other types of, I don't want to say powers, but ways to kind of move through our earthly plane. That's what I believe about it. But we shall see. Thank you so much for Sara for sharing. Wanted to let everyone know, go check out my Patreon. I have the speed readings for December up. I also am posting a class on the subject of communicating with aliens. Oh, surprise for my Sacred Scholar people. Thank you so much. If you want to support the work I do, this is the best way. Also, getting readings from me or taking a mentorship is more about really supporting you. And I have a lot of people have been signing up for that, which I so am happy about, because we're going into January, we're going to December. So I feel like people are kind of moving into doing something for themselves, which I think is amazing. But thank you so much for another great episode. I believe this is a great episode. And send in your emails. And don't forget to review this podcast, because reviewing and interacting helps me to get out to more people. Follow yourself, follow no one, listen to your inner voice, and I'll see you soon.